You're sitting in a cold airport terminal, your body stitched together from recent surgery, the smell of antiseptic still clinging to your skin. A yellow hospital wristband circles your arm like proof of survival, and every breath you take makes your abdomen tighten with pain. You just want to get home, to your own bed, to quiet, to rest. But before you can even reach your gate, a woman in a coral pink blazer storms toward you with fury burning in her eyes, demanding your wheelchair because her feet hurt from shopping. You think it's a joke at first, some misunderstanding. But when she actually grabs the handles, trying to take it, you realize this isn't confusion. This is pure entitlement in motion. 3 days earlier, Emma Rodriguez had been rushed into emergency surgery after her gallbladder ruptured. It wasn't planned, it wasn't convenient, but it saved her life. The doctors had stitched and drained her abdomen, sending her home with strict orders. No heavy lifting, no long walks, no standing for more than a few minutes. Her body was weak, tender, healing. So that Tuesday morning, when her sister wheeled her into the airport, Emma was still pale and exhausted, dressed in loose joggers and an oversized sweatshirt because anything tighter felt like sandpaper against her incisions. The plan was simple: get her on the flight back to Denver, where her support system and medical team were waiting. At the wheelchair assistance desk, her sister handed over Emma's paperwork, the hospital's discharge summary still warm from the printer. The attendant, a kind man named James, appeared within minutes. His voice was calm and steady as he adjusted the footrests and gently helped Emma lower herself into the chair. Even sitting hurt. She winced when she leaned back, gripping her pain medicine bottle like a lifeline. James noticed and moved carefully, securing her small bag in front of her before starting down the terminal. The airport felt endless. Around them, travelers rushed in every direction, heels clacking, suitcases rolling, the air thick with coffee and impatience. Emma watched it all blur by, the bright screens, the shouting gate announcements, the chaos of people who had no idea how fragile she felt. She'd survived surgery, but right now even existing felt like an uphill battle. The wheelchair was her only way through. James maneuvered smoothly toward the medical assistance lane at security, a shorter route meant for people with mobility issues. Emma was grateful beyond words. Every few minutes, she adjusted her sitting position, feeling the dull ache under her skin. Her hospital wristband flashed under the lights, her name and barcode still visible. She had proof of everything, proof that she belonged in that chair. And that's when the storm arrived. Karen Brennan came strutting through the terminal like she owned it. Coral pink blazer, gold hoops swinging, her blonde pixie cut styled to perfection. Behind her, her adult daughter Brittany struggled with multiple designer shopping bags trying to keep up. Karen's wedge sandals clicked across the floor as she scanned the crowd, and then her eyes landed on Emma, the tired young woman in a wheelchair. And something in her brain twisted. She saw convenience. She saw opportunity. And she decided that she, a perfectly able-bodied woman with sore feet, deserved that wheelchair more. "Excuse me," Karen barked, her voice sharp and nasal. "I need that wheelchair. My feet are killing me, and I've been walking all morning." Emma blinked, stunned. She thought she misheard. "I'm sorry. This wheelchair is assigned to me," she said softly, trying to sound polite. "I just had surgery and—" Karen waved a manicured hand in her face, cutting her off. "Oh, please. Everyone says that. You look fine to me. You're young. You can walk. I've been standing for hours and I'm older than you. Now be decent and let me use that chair." James straightened up, his professional calm still intact but his jaw tightening. "Ma'am," he said firmly, "this wheelchair belongs to a passenger with verified medical documentation. If you need assistance, you'll have to request your own at the desk." That should have ended it. Any normal person would have backed off, maybe even apologized. But not Karen. Her coral blazer seemed to glow brighter as her face flushed red. "I am not walking all the way back there," she snapped. "That's discrimination. I have pain too, and this airport is supposed to treat customers equally. Why should she get special treatment?" Her voice echoed down the terminal. People began to slow down, turning to see what was happening. Emma felt her chest tighten with embarrassment and anger all at once. I had emergency surgery 3 days ago, she said, trying to stay composed. I have incisions, I can't walk long distances, please just leave me alone. But Karen only laughed. That mocking, dismissive laugh that could curdle blood. Surgery? Then why aren't you in the hospital? You're just pretending to get sympathy. I see people like you all the time, faking disabilities to cut in line or get attention. It's disgusting. The words hit Emma like a slap. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. She looked around. People were watching now, horrified but silent. Brittany, Karen's daughter, tugged on her mother's sleeve. "Mom, please stop," she whispered, her face burning with shame. "Let's just go." But Karen yanked her arm free and snapped, "Don't tell me what to do." Then she turned back to Emma, voice rising again. "You're not fooling anyone. Get up and let me have that chair." James moved between them, his tone firm now. "Ma'am, if you continue harassing my passenger, I'll call airport security." And that's when Karen crossed the line completely. With a burst of entitlement that defied belief, she reached forward and grabbed Emma's arm, right near her surgical site, and yanked. Emma screamed. Pain shot through her side like fire, her vision going blurry. James immediately pulled her back, radioing for help. "Security, Terminal C, assault on a medical wheelchair passenger." The crowd gasped. Phones came out. Cameras rolled. And as Karen stumbled backward, shouting that she barely touched her, the entire terminal seemed to turn against her. Emma clutched her side, tears streaking her face, her sweatshirt damp with sweat from the pain. The only sound louder than Karen's denial was the click of security boots racing down the terminal. Because this wasn't just entitlement anymore. This was assault. The crowd around Emma had turned from curious to protective, a human wall forming as James kept the wheelchair steady, and security was called. The once bustling terminal quieted with that uneasy tension that comes when something serious happens in a public space. Karen, suddenly realizing the spotlight was no longer admiration but judgment, stumbled backward, clutching her designer handbag like a shield. Her daughter Brittany stood frozen a few feet away, her face pale and eyes wide with disbelief. James's voice was steady but sharp as he spoke into his radio, calling for immediate backup to Terminal C. The tone in his voice left no room for misunderstanding. This wasn't a misunderstanding or a passenger dispute. This was assault on a medical patient, and every witness in that terminal knew it. Within moments, 2 airport security officers appeared, cutting through the murmuring crowd with practiced efficiency. One of them, Officer Lisa Chen, had already seen the footage on the cameras before arriving. She moved with a calm, collected energy that made the situation feel suddenly under control. Her uniform was crisp, her expression unreadable, but her eyes, sharp and assessing, moved from Emma's pale, trembling form to Karen's defensive posture. "Ma'am," Officer Chen began, her tone firm but professional. "I'm Officer Chen with airport security. We've had reports that you physically grabbed another passenger. Is that correct?" Karen immediately shifted into performance mode. Her posture straightened, her voice softened, and she pressed a hand dramatically to her chest, as if deeply wounded by the accusation. "Officer, thank goodness you're here," she said, feigning relief. "I was just trying to help her. She's pretending to be injured to get special treatment. I asked politely to use the wheelchair because I have terrible foot pain, and she started screaming. She's overreacting." The words fell out rehearsed, dripping with false sincerity. But Officer Chen's eyes didn't waver. She'd heard it all before. The quick turn from aggressor to victim. The melodrama meant to deflect responsibility. Turning to Emma, Chen's tone softened instantly. "Miss, are you all right? Do you need medical attention?" she asked. Emma nodded weakly, her breath still shaky. "She grabbed me right where I have surgical incisions," she said, her voice trembling but steady enough to be clear. "I had emergency surgery 3 days ago. I can show you." With shaking hands, she handed over her discharge papers and prescription bottle with her name and date clearly printed. She lifted her sweatshirt slightly, just enough to reveal the taped medical dressing on her abdomen. The sight alone made a few bystanders gasp. Chen examined the documents and wristband carefully, her professional expression hardening into one of unmistakable resolve. Karen's face began to lose its color as the officer turned back toward her. "Ma'am," Chen said evenly, "this passenger has verified medical documentation and visible post-operative injuries. You physically grabbed her without consent while she was using mobility equipment assigned to her by the airline. That constitutes assault, and may also fall under disability discrimination. I need you to come with me to the security office for questioning." But Karen wasn't ready to accept reality. Her tone shot back up, sharp and indignant. "This is insane. I didn't assault anyone. I barely touched her. She's exaggerating. I'm a paying customer, and you people are treating me like a criminal." The volume of her voice drew more onlookers. People began whispering, phones recording. Brittany covered her face with one hand, humiliated, as her mother's tantrum escalated in real time. "I want to speak to your supervisor," Karen continued, her coral blazer now wrinkled and her lipstick slightly smeared. "I have rights. I'm not going anywhere until you explain why I'm being harassed." Officer Chen stood motionless for a moment, letting Karen's words echo uselessly in the air. When she finally spoke, her tone was colder than before. "Ma'am, we have multiple witnesses, several recordings from bystanders, and surveillance footage showing exactly what happened. You can come voluntarily to the office or I can detain you here. Either way, this conversation is moving." Her calm authority left no opening for argument, but Karen still hesitated, looking around as if waiting for someone, anyone, to take her side. No one did. The silence of the onlookers was heavy, condemning. Even Brittany, finally finding her voice, whispered, "Mom, please just go with them. You grabbed her. I saw it. You need to stop." That was the final blow. Karen whipped around, glaring at her daughter as if betrayed. "Whose side are you on?" she snapped, her words venomous. Brittany flinched and looked away, refusing to respond. The officers exchanged a brief glance, then gently but firmly directed Karen toward the security office. She protested all the way down the terminal, ranting about how unfair the situation was, how she was the victim, how she would be missing her flight. Every excuse was louder than the last, but the clapping that followed her exit was louder still. Travelers who had witnessed the assault applauded as Karen disappeared down the hall, escorted between two officers. The echo of that applause lingered like poetic justice. James knelt beside Emma, his usually steady hands trembling slightly now that the adrenaline was fading. "You're safe now," he said softly. "Medical is on the way." Within minutes, a nurse from the airport medical team arrived, checking Emma's vitals, ensuring the sudden jerk hadn't reopened any sutures or damaged her healing wounds. They offered her water and allowed her to take her pain medication early. Emma was still shaking, her body buzzing from the shock and humiliation, but the compassion from those around her began to ease the ache in her chest. The nurse assured her she was in no trouble, that she'd done nothing wrong, and that security had everything under control. As Emma sat there trying to steady her breathing, TSA agent Marcus Thompson approached from the security checkpoint. He had witnessed the entire scene from a distance and looked both furious and protective. "Miss Rodriguez," he said kindly, "we're going to take care of you from here. You don't need to stand, lift, or move a thing. I'll make sure you get through security safely." His professionalism was paired with genuine care, and for the first time since the confrontation began, Emma felt safe. James nodded in agreement and began pushing her chair slowly toward the medical lane while security took statements from witnesses. Around them, travelers murmured words of support, some even thanking Emma for staying calm in the face of such cruelty. Once in the quiet of the medical office, Emma finally let the tears fall. They weren't just from the pain, they were from exhaustion, disbelief, and the heavy weight of being accused of faking her suffering. Officer Chen entered the room a few minutes later, now calmer, clipboard in hand. "Miss Rodriguez, I just want you to know we're taking this very seriously," she said gently. "Assaulting someone with a verified medical condition is not a minor offense. There will be charges filed." Emma nodded, relieved but still processing everything. "I just wanted to get home," she whispered. Chen gave a small, sympathetic smile. "You will. But first, We're going to make sure justice is done." Outside that office, Karen's world was collapsing in slow motion. Every excuse she made only made things worse, and every denial unraveled under the weight of truth. For the first time that day, she wasn't the one in control. And for Emma, sitting quietly as her statement was written, the chaos had finally turned into something that almost resembled peace. She didn't know it yet, but the woman who had grabbed her arm out of selfishness was about to face the kind of accountability that people like her almost never do. In the sterile quiet of the airport security office, Karen sat across from Officer Chen. Her coral blazer no longer a symbol of confidence, but a reminder of everything she'd lost control over. The cameras had caught everything. The moment she reached for Emma. The pull, the outburst, the disbelief on every face around them. Every lie she told twisted tighter around her until there was nowhere left to run. She started with denial, then backpedaled into excuses, and finally slipped into tearful pleas. But none of it mattered. The video footage told the truth she couldn't spin away. She had assaulted a post-surgical patient over a wheelchair. Officer Chen's tone remained calm but unyielding. "Ma'am, you're being cited for simple assault, attempted theft of mobility equipment, and harassment," she said, sliding the paperwork across the table. "You'll receive a court summons, and the airline has been notified that you'll not be boarding today." Karen's jaw trembled as her voice dropped to a whisper. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I just thought she was exaggerating." But Chen didn't flinch. "You made assumptions, and you put your hands on someone healing from surgery. That's not misunderstanding. That's violence." Meanwhile, Emma sat in a nearby office, her hands folded tightly in her lap as she gave her statement. Her voice was quiet but unwavering, every word backed by medical proof and multiple witnesses. When she was finally cleared to board, TSA agent Marcus and James, the attendant who'd stayed by her side through it all, escorted her to her gate. Travelers she didn't even know stopped to wish her well, some even apologizing for what she'd endured. For the first time that day, Emma felt seen, not as a patient but as a person who'd stood against cruelty and refused to be silenced. Weeks later, Emma received a call from airport security. Karen had been found guilty. The judge sentenced her to probation, mandatory community service, and anger management classes. She was also ordered to pay restitution for the medical check Emma needed after the incident. But the humiliation didn't stop there. News of the airport assault spread quietly through Karen's HOA back in Phoenix. Neighbors connected the dots. The coral blazer, the attitude, the viral clip that circulated online. The same woman who'd filed dozens of petty complaints against elderly and disabled residents was now exposed for what she truly was. The HOA issued her a formal warning, and even her own daughter, Brittany, publicly distanced herself, saying she was done making excuses for her mother's cruelty. In a twist of irony, Karen's community service placed her in a disability rights center, where she spent weeks listening to real people tell stories of discrimination, stories that mirrored the very harm she'd caused. Whether she learned anything from it, no one could say. But Emma did. She learned that standing your ground, even when weak, even when afraid, can expose the rot behind entitlement. And sometimes the loudest justice isn't a verdict. It's the sound of an entitled Karen realizing she's no longer the victim in her own story.